Good to go.
Hi, I'm Jason Grigsby. I'm one of the co-founders of Cloud4 here in Portland.
Well, thanks for having us here. So at some point you realized that you were running a business and you were in charge of a bunch of people and their futures. Can you tell us a little bit about that moment when it all came together?
I think that was a gradual progression. The four founders of Cloud4, we left a previous company. We'd worked together for a minimum of 7 years, and around that time, it was 2007, the iPhone had come out. And the previous company, there were some changes going on that weren't exactly what we wanted to see happen. We were looking around, we wanted to go work on mobile. There was also, at that point, I'd read Tomi Hohn writing about the fact that there were 3.3 billion phones on the planet for 6.6 billion people, and realized that mobile was going to be the next big thing, and that it was pretty unlikely that the company that we were at, even if the changes weren't happening, that company was very focused on a market where you couldn't do that sort of quick transitions, where you couldn't go focus on a new technology area. And knowing that that was going to be the next sort of boom, we decided that, hey, it would be nice to go work on that. The original business plan was basically, like a 37 signal sort of thing, where we're going to we're going to start with desktop-based web development, eventually do more mobile stuff, and then once we figured out what was needed in that space, we might create a product around that. Stage 3 never happened. So yeah, and at some point we hired Megan, who was our project manager, our first employee, and then just sort of grew the team gradually from there.
So what's your feeling then on not having got to the level 3? Do you still feel satisfied?
Yeah, I think that there is a little bit still of the fact that, like, when I talk to other people who own agencies, with sort of few exceptions, I don't know that there's anyone who thinks that they want to spend the rest of their lives chasing the next project, right? So that part of the work is not. It's the agonizing, keeps you up at night sort of part. And the lure of making that transition has always been, hey, you could have a recurring revenue base and sort of like eliminate that. But I also don't think that it makes sense for us. Like, as we've learned more about what we're interested in and what we do, like that's not going to be what happens for us. The chances of us, I guess it's possible tomorrow we could wake up and suddenly be like, oh, here's this thing that we're all really passionate about and that we want to go build, and that would be really awesome. But I just don't think that that's likely to be the case. Instead, what happens is that we end up looking for ways that we can do the stuff we love, which oftentimes ends up being researching sort of the frontiers of what can be done on the web and sort of where the web is headed. Learn from that, and then use that to bring in more work, and also to do workshops and presentations and things of that nature that bring in not money you can live on, but money that sort of helps a little bit in the business.
Yeah, you're pretty involved in the community. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we, early on in 2007, I guess it was like December, we looked around and realized that nobody was talking about mobile in Portland. And so we started Mobile Portland, which is a monthly user group. And it actually just ended last month after 7 years.
Wow.
So we've covered a gamut of topics. We probably had, we averaged around 120 people per month at the meetings. And we did it monthly from March 2008 until Monday, just this last Monday. So quite some time, and it was great. It was a lot of fun, and it was really good. At some point, our focus shifted a little. Like, we don't focus on mobile now, and so it became a little strange to be like trying to steer a ship of a group that was entirely focused on mobile. And it also, I think, from a business perspective, like if most of what we did wasn't for business, right? Like we did it because there was no place to have those conversations, and we wanted to have those conversations. But early on in Cloud4's life, when we were doing that, that was also really helpful, because then it put us in a bunch of conversations about app development and mobile development. And 2 years ago or so, we decided we didn't want to do apps at all. We don't want to do stuff that's distributed via the App Store. And then, but now we had like 5 years of people thinking that that's what we did, because of the fact that we did Mobile Portland and we worked on Obama's app and like all of this sort of stuff. And so now, like, people, whenever we get a lead from Portland, it's almost always a bad lead. And when we get a lead from outside of the area, it's more likely that they know us for actually what we do now.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting, but it's been fun. Monday night was bittersweet.
Sure.
But it's a lot of, I mean, now we're doing a conference, so we're going to do Responsive Field Day, which is focused on responsive design and closer to the stuff that we do on a daily basis.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So there's 4 partners, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Tell me a little bit about partnerships and managing those. I mean, it's probably a little bit like a marriage in a way.
Yeah, I mean, we've worked with each other for, like I said, it was 7 years when we started the company, so now it's been 14 years at minimum, and Liza and John have worked together longer. John left, well, he started another startup, and he sold some of his shares back to the company last year, so he's down to 10% of the company, and Liza, Aileen, and I run the business on a day-to-day basis. And yeah, I mean, you're right, like the things that are going on in our personal lives impact what's going on in the business, whether we like it or not. Being able to figure out how to find alignment ends up being a big thing, and we've had periods of the company's history where we weren't aligned, and things were really, really rough. But in times when we're aligned at sort of like a high level, all of the sort of small stuff on a day-to-day basis usually works itself out.
Do you think that there's any magic formula or secret to successful partnerships working?
I don't know. I think it's if you've got people that you've worked with for quite some time. I mean, the ones that I've seen fail are like the ones where it seems like people sort of threw themselves together, not knowing each other well. But I don't know that I have enough. I don't know whether, I mean, like the story's still out on us, right? Like you could still screw it up. So yeah. I'm not sure that I can speak authoritatively on what makes a partnership successful.
So let's turn from the partnership to you specifically. Do you think that there's a leadership style or a description that describes the way that you manage?
I tend to be pretty hands-off at this point in time. I think it depends on what, like, as our roles have evolved in the business, this has changed quite a bit. So the way that I managed at the previous company and that I managed early in the business is very different than the way that it happens now. In the previous company, you know, there was a lot more hands-on working with people. I think now I end up setting more of a vision and basically assuming that as long as people understand where the vision is, they're going to do better work than I would have anyways. And then it becomes how to enable them to do that and how to support them when things are rough. Mm-hmm. I don't spend nearly as much time. I don't know, like we hire good people, and I feel like the moment I'm worrying about whether somebody's doing their work or not doing their work, or whether they're doing the right thing or not doing the right thing, is like the moment we've got a problem anyways. Like, I don't know, it's just not the way I'm wired to think. And Liza, I think, does more active management of people and helping them grow and things like that, and so she's really interested in that portion of it. But even for her, like the idea that we worry about or like spend a lot of time, like there's a lot of trust in the organization. We're just too small not to.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the culture then, because the way that you manage and the way that you've set up this company obviously leads to kind of a cultural result. How would you describe that thing?
We are incredibly transparent and open about what we're doing and why we're doing it. I also think, culture has become this really loaded word in our society or in our industry lately. And I didn't even realize how loaded it was. So it was like we used to talk about culture and trying to find cultural fit and things of that nature. And now I'm reticent to talk about it because there's so many other places where their description of culture is basically like it's code for trying to find like-minded people and have them work crazy hours and like all of that sort of stuff. And that's not us at all. People come in and a reasonable hour, and what that is varies depending on what's going on for them. And everybody works from home on Wednesdays, and people just collaborate and do work. That's the main thing that we're focused on, is how do we enable that collaboration? How do we make sure that people are working well together? Mm-hmm. We spent a lot of time in the early days of the business with what I would describe as a bunch of really great individual contributors, but that the team as a whole wasn't much better than the sum of the individual contributors. And now I feel like the work that we're doing is better because of the collaboration that's happening. So as long as that collaboration is happening and the work quality remains really high, it doesn't really matter how people get things done. And we assume that people have lives outside of